Hi, it's lawyer Lisa. I want to talk about the ratcheting of the totalitarian state, and I'm going to try to do it justice. Because this is something I've been thinking about a lot. I think a lot. Um, so, if you're not in Canada, you may not know that we are starting to ratchet up bills that jail Canadians for their speech. And so, if you don't know that, it's important to delve in to this video because whatever happens in one OECD country is going to roll out everywhere. So this is a push for globalism. And so, maybe you're not part of, my regular Substack readers, pardon me, or maybe you're new to the idea of really globalism. So, and I know I have viewers and readers who are, so well read in this area. So I'm going to try to do it justice for everybody because then it's more meaningful and impactful. So if you know a lot already, that's great. But I'm sure I have some tidbits to share with you that you may not be aware of or haven't thought of it in this way. So the first area, okay, we're going to cover 4 areas. And the first area is the professional bodies. I have a book I'm releasing on it. It's called Unprofessional. And it's the use of professional authorization committees to remove the ability of a individual to practice in their area. And so once you've been removed in that area, I don't think you can move over to a different area. So, and that means that your speech in a few key areas, which we will also review, would remove your right to practice. And the Jordan Peterson case was important both for showing how transnational this was. A complainant could come from anywhere. And that the courts in Canada are awarding deference, complete deference to the system. Okay, so what that means is that these professional authorization committees can work in this area without the court's supervision. And so it's a new power, and it's going to be more important than the courts by 2025, unless we alter this system completely. So the professional authorization committees will look at areas that involve your speech in the public, not your relationship with a client, not substandard service, not an abuse of a client or taking their money or anything else like that. Just your speech in a few key areas. And you will find out that those key areas are always the transnational tropes. The transnational tropes are very important not to disagree with because they hide an architecture of power that must be completely in place, right? And in order to be completely in place, they need silence from opposition and no scrutiny. And I'll give you those examples. And, I've spent a lot of time on this. So that's the first area. The second area is actual jail for speech. And in Canada, that includes certainly the worst of the Professional Authorization Committee legislation, which is in long arm jurisdiction as well. That means it will cross its jurisdictional boundaries. And that's Bill 36 in BC. And if anybody who is a lawyer wants to know which way the professional bodies are going to be governing, just read Bill 36. These committees have powers on an as needed basis. Whoever heard of that, right? Whoever heard of that? And search and seizure powers, and all for speech. All for speech that could be misinformation or disinformation, all for speech. And always it's going to be in the same areas. We have also Bill 63 that has been presented to Parliament by the Trudeau Liberals, right? And yay, Justin Singh, WEF Justin Singh, and WEF Chrystia Freeland, and WEF Justin Trudeau. Did I call Justin Singh? No. Well, anyways, Jagmeet Singh. So they have cornered or Parliament. And unless MPs dissent and move over to the Conservatives right now, we're facing Bill 63. And I actually think that's the solution. MPs en masse with conscience have to move over. They just have to move over, right? We're actually implementing a totalitarian state, and the ratcheting is occurring, and they'll just have to turn the key at some point. So this bill will jail people for hate. Now, hate is not going to be defined as calling someone a misogynist for not wanting to take a blip. Okay, it's not going to be calling your population taking up space, right? It's going to always be on the transnational tropes, the same transnational tropes that the professional authorization committees will be silencing everybody. And back to that one area, the professional authorization committees are collecting everybody. Every area is being regulated. And so you're either regulated by a professional authorization committee, or you work in a profession that has workplace harassment policies or bullying policies that the Ontario Human Rights Code will invade. So, that whole area of working is going to be, if you use speech in a way that is against their views, you will not be able to earn a living. That is the whole ratcheting of economic and social apartheid for speech. And, free speech is important, let me tell you. So then on the other side is actual prison for speech. And we have the first example already in place, which is Bill C4. And let's take a look at that a little bit closer, because that's one of the transnational tropes that you are not allowed to speak against, and that's transgender rights and transgender affirmation. What is love and what is treatment and what is, what has to happen. So if a medical professional, and I'm just reporting this, if a medical professional disagrees with the diagnosis, they face jail. If a medical professional gives a second opinion that isn't the, affirmation opinion, and they say something like, wait till you're 18, see what happens. Because apparently 97% of people get comfortable with their body after puberty. So, or a very, very high percentage. So if that professional says, wait, they face jail time. Or if they say, well, maybe it's part of depression, or your first underlying, issue, maybe it's a part of your autism, or maybe it's part of, maybe you're actually gay, or, maybe it's something else. They face prison. Let's break that down just a little bit. Let's not even look at whether or not that creates a one-way conveyor belt, right, with no off-ramp. Let's not look at that, whether or not there's pharmaceutical incentives for a capture them young and be on them for life. Let's not look at that. Let's not look at whether or not there's downsides to Lupron, and that there have been many lawsuits for Lupron given for precocious puberty. Let's not look at that, and what happened to the bodies of the individuals, including cancers and liver cancers and extreme osteoporosis, so that their body looked like an aged person by the time they were 20. Let's not look at that. Let's look at whether or not any other medical diagnosis leads to prison, right? So a guy goes in because he's got Crohn's and he goes to see a surgeon. Well, the surgeon's bias might be like, let's take out feet of your intestines. Let's do that. And he goes to see another doctor, and they're more of a, holistic nutritionist, and we're going to give you drugs to get rid of the inflammation. And we have some highly successful drugs. So let's try that. Which guy goes to jail? Which doctor goes to jail? Right? In all of history of medical opinions, you are always entitled to a second opinion. And doctors have not necessarily agreed on how to treat the individual, right? And that's how treatments have evolved. Whoever got good at solving an issue with a medical, quandary ended up coming up with new and really viable treatments. But you're not allowed a second opinion. You go to jail for that second opinion. Seems harsh, right? But it, got passed because we're simpletons. Right? Got passed because they called it an anti-conversion law. Right? Give anything a good title and it's great. Right? Because we have a media that doesn't delve in, doesn't look analytically at anything. So there you have it. Medical professionals go to jail if they decide to stop affirming a child. That's pretty interesting. And then you go to jail under Bill 63. And that's been, it's been presented to Parliament, and that's for hate speech. So hate will be defined as what it is They want it defined. It could be defined actually as religious beliefs. We've seen the Muslim parents vilified as hateful for protesting curriculum in school. So religious views. We've seen 100 churches in Canada burn. Nary a peep that could be hate, right? Systematic hate against a religion. So, that's an area where we're going to actually see imprisonment for speech. And then the third area of the ratcheting of the state involves something I saw in Indiana. And it was a legislation that indicated if you have had some kind of blight on your record for, ethical violations, i.e. the professional authorization committees for your speech, you couldn't run for office. Oh, right? So your ability to change what's going on in your country involves voting for someone else. But if that candidate can't even present themselves because they've been ousted by this whole system of the professional authorization committees hitting you up for speech and taking you out, right? Who gets taken out? Those with conservative views, those with views protective of the nation state, those with views who are protective of speech, of religion, right? Freedom of religion. All those views are on the wane, and what's coming out is instead of, intense globalism. And the professional authorization committees, as I detail in my book on professional, they're going to be integrated, and they are going to weave a power that is going to eclipse those of the courts. So, how do you change your world if you can't speak? Go to jail, or you lose your right to earn a living. How do you change your world if you can't vote for the candidate because the candidate was voted for was outed? You can't vote for him. He's been outed for speaking in areas that you want to vote for. So, that's no good. And then the last area is how when the professional authorization committees come for lawyers, right? That's going to be a fight. That's going to be a fight. Should be. Right? When they come for lawyers, there's already deference by the courts to these professional authorization committees. I'm kind of disappointed in the Court of Appeal, really am. Maybe they don't see the whole global architecture of power that is assembling against the nation state and don't understand the role of, the officers of the court to stand. Like, if this ship is going down, baby, here I am. Here I am. So if they come for lawyers, which they are coming for lawyers, the professional authorization committees have been set up at the Law Society of Ontario, which used to be the Law Society of Upper Canada. But that was too historical, wasn't it? Gotta go away from history. Gotta take down history. Then you do two things, right? So if speech in the area of the transnational tropes, conservative speech for fossil fuels, for instance, for energy security, speech that wants to give parents more rights or reclaim their rights rather than the state raising the child, those lawyers can get checked out. So what happens, right? You just see what happens. Who's filing the cases for losses of religious rights or rights for freedom? What if those lawyers are in jail, right? So courts are busy day in, day out, but none of those cases are filed, right? So you don't have that check and balance on accesses in the executive branch or the legislative branch in a time when excesses of power are being taken on a scale we have not witnessed in Canada. Not witnessed the excesses of powers that are being rolled out in legislation. We've not witnessed that ever. And yet, we've also set up a system that can take out the lawyers that would challenge those cases. And if you've done that, you've taken out who are the judges that will hear those cases. So it looks the same. We have a legislative, executive, and judiciary branch. But you've eliminated the ability to challenge. If you eliminate who can run for office, you've eliminated the ability to vote for change. If you've eliminated the ability to earn a living, you've eliminated the speech and who's willing to challenge it. So in all of these areas, you've eliminated the ability to challenge the totalitarian authoritative state. That's what I see. Now let's look at the transnational tropes themselves, because each of those in turn all hide an architecture of power that is also transnational. It's not a coincidence. So I know there's some transgender activists out there who really believe that the system that is being set up is to assist them become their true selves. And if you believe that, go ahead. However, open your mind to this idea. The rights-based infrastructure being set up for transgender rights and the medical infrastructure being set up for transgender rights can be piggybacked on transhumanism. The race under the skin is the most important race that you're not looking at. That is the power. It's military, right? Neuralink, the ability to put us all in a grid and watch us, right? We are at that technical ability, and we have been for some time now, and now we are implementing that technical ability, right? So your ability to decide on changes to morphing your physical body and accepting those changes with gender is the stepping stone to accepting the changes for the neural link, the chip, the mark, right? 2017, there was the study done by the EU to find out what were the legal and ethical and moral impediments to chipping its citizens. So those impediments get lifted with the WHO pandemic treaty, and they get lifted with the WHO international health regulations, right? So the things, right? So you can't talk shit against the COVID response, or right? Can't talk against that, and we need this new pandemic treaty and all, that's rolling out. That's the architecture of power rolling out. And you can't talk shit against climate. In Canada, the NDP have brought in a bill that if you speak positively for fossil fuels, you should go to jail. You should go to jail, right? Imprisonment, right? But the WHO pandemic treaty also has the promise through its declaration of emergency, climate emergency, to lock you down for climate. Another new way to impose the totalitarian authoritative state. It's a ratcheting, right? You can't speak against climate because if you start to scratch and dig, you'll find power and resources moving. I'll do my CCP angle in a separate video because it's quite persuasive, especially in Canada, where the evidence is mounting and mounting and mounting. What are you doing, RCMP? Who's left and sees this? Who? So we have the transnational trope, transgenderism, transgender. Really, you can't oppose it because of what's coming next. That has nothing to do with gender. It's transhumanism. And you can't oppose climate because the method to deal with CO2 is us. And I've done extensive videos on the C40 Arab Leads report that details how they solve for climate by reducing our consumption of key areas. 3 items of new clothing per person per year. Oh, by 2030. 0 personal vehicles by 2030. No ICE, no EV. It's all just it's a fake fight. 0 kilograms of meat, dairy, or dairy alternatives per person per year by 2030. 0 kilograms, right? Leaving the city. 1 short haul flight every 3 years per person, right? Aggressive mandatory retrofits to houses that are so expensive that it creates stranded assets and you can't sell it because no one can afford the retrofit. Who benefits? BlackRock, Vanguard. How do you get to 0? Right? The transnational tropes you can't disagree with hide a transnational architecture of power. The methods to enforce them are prison, professional bodies. That's the ratcheting of the authoritative state. And if you're somebody who wants to hire me to undo the ratcheting of the authoritative state, I would be excellent at it, systematic, and come up with your list, and I would be able to execute that, give you how to do it. Oh, that's my pitch. Also, you should read my books. I should just get them out there because I think they're brilliant. Let me know what you think. Over and out.